Could it be that a seemingly small moment can change the entire sky of America? A slim black girl, daughter of a successful businessman, boarded the flight like everyone else, just wanted a peaceful journey. Yet a few minutes later she was curled up in pain, her ribs broken by the kick of the person who was supposed to protect her safety. And then 152 airports nationwide froze. The whole country was plunged into panic. But this is not just a story about violence. It is a story about choices. To choose to remain silent like so many times, or to speak up even though we know it will disturb the whole sky. If you were Ariana, forced to choose before you could even breathe, would you stay silent or let the truth speak for you? That question is not just for that little girl. It is for all of us, those of us who have been hurt, who have been overlooked, who have had to cower in the face of injustice. Please join me in the story. A story that is not sensational, but enough to touch anyone's heart. If you believe that justice begins with the truth, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to continue the journey with us. The first thing people noticed about the girl in seat 1A was not her quiet posture or the way she held her book carefully with both hands. It wasn't even her soft smile when she greeted the flight attendant, who barely looked at her. What people noticed, what they chose to notice, was simply this: she was black, she was young, and she was alone in first class. To some people on that early morning flight out of Denver International Airport, that combination did not add up. Ariana Collins had always sensed these silent equations. At 13, she understood far more about the world than she ever wished to. It wasn't that she saw darkness everywhere. She just recognized the subtle ways people measured her before they even heard her voice. But this morning she told herself it would be a simple flight, quiet, a chance to breathe. Her father, Darius Collins, had insisted she take the trip 2 states over a short weekend visit with her aunt. A change of scenery will be good for you, he'd said, placing his large, warm hand gently on her shoulder. He had looked tired when he said it. Tired and maybe worried. Ever since her mother passed, Ariana knew he tried to pretend he was iron. But even iron bends. Ariana sat down in seat 1A and placed her small backpack under the seat in front of her. Everything felt normal. The cabin hummed with soft conversation, the muted rustling of newspapers, the clinks of glasses being arranged, the usual first-class choreography. She took a slow breath, settling into the leather seat. Her ribs felt tight this morning, a lingering ache from a fall she'd had earlier that week. Nothing serious. The doctor said she was fine. Still, she tried not to move too quickly. As she opened her book, the scent of old paper greeted her, a comforting smell, like something familiar in a world that kept shifting under her feet. But peace doesn't always last. Peace rarely does. The flight attendant approached. Her name badge read Linda Hartman. Mid 50 seconds. Hair pulled into a neat bun. A face shaped by routine, by years of life lived on autopilot. She looked at Ariana the way one might look at a smudge on a polished window. No smile, no greeting, just suspicion. "Sweetheart," Linda said, voice tight, "I need to see your boarding pass." Ariana blinked up at her, slightly confused. She had already scanned her ticket at the gate, and the gate agent had not asked for anything extra. "Of course," Ariana said quietly. She reached into her backpack. Linda didn't wait. She leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Whose seat is this?" Ariana froze for a second, not from fear but from recognition. She'd heard that tone before, even if she couldn't always name it. "This is my seat," Ariana said. Her voice remained calm, steady. She retrieved the ticket and held it out. Linda didn't take it. Instead, she said, "Where are your parents? And don't tell me you paid for this." A few passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably. Nobody spoke. Ariana swallowed. "My dad booked it for me. I'm traveling alone." Linda exhaled sharply through her nose, like she'd just been offered a story too ridiculous to entertain. "Honey, first class isn't for everyone. Come on, let's not make this difficult." There it was, the soft cruelty hidden in politeness, the kind that left no bruises but always left marks. Ariana tried again. "You can scan the ticket if you need. It's my seat." Linda reached for her arm. Ariana pulled back instinctively. That was all it took. Something in Linda's face snapped like a thin wire pulled too tight. "Oh, you're resisting now," she hissed. Before Ariana could explain, Linda grabbed her wrist, yanked her up from the seat, and in the sudden movement her elbow collided sharply with Ariana's ribcage. A sharp electric pain shot through her side. Ariana gasped. Passengers watched, eyes wide. Some raised their phones halfway, then lowered them. Nobody intervened. Nobody wanted to cause trouble. Linda pressed her hand against Ariana's back. "Let's go," she ordered. Ariana stumbled. Her foot caught the edge of the aisle. Linda's knee rose, whether intentional or careless, no one could say, and struck Ariana's side. Ariana collapsed to one knee, her small hands gripping the polished floor. A pain like nothing she had ever felt radiated through her chest. She could barely breathe. "Get up," Linda snapped. "You can't sit up here." A middle-aged businessman in 1C cleared his throat half-heartedly. Maybe check the ticket." Linda shot him a glare sharp enough to silence him. Ariana finally managed to speak, voice thin and trembling. "Please, it hurts." Linda rolled her eyes. "You kids will do anything to stay in first class. Get up." She tugged Ariana forward by the arm. Another passenger whispered, "Is she really doing this?" Someone else replied, "Just stay out of it." The walk down the aisle felt endless. Every step was agony, white-hot pain pulsing with every breath. Tears blurred Ariana's vision, but she refused to let them fall. Her mother always said tears were not weakness, but Ariana still didn't want to give Linda that satisfaction. Finally, Linda shoved her into an empty seat in the back of economy row 31. "Stay here until we land," she said coldly. Then she walked away, and the cabin full of adults who should have known better returned to its quiet indifference. Ariana pressed her palm against her ribs. She felt something shift beneath her skin, a frightening grinding sensation. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath. She had been hurt before: scrapes, falls, the occasional accident. But this pain was different. Deep. Sharp. Wrong. She reached into her pocket and touched the small silver pendant she always wore. A gift from her mother. Inside was a tiny chip her father had once called a piece of her aunt's legacy. Ariana didn't fully understand what it did, only that she was not supposed to activate it unless something truly terrible happened. She whispered to herself, "Mom, I think today counts." The plane had not yet taken off. The engines were still humming gently. But something else began humming too, something so faint only Ariana could feel it through her palm. The pendant warmed, a soft vibration pulsed, and in that quiet moment seat 31A became the center of a storm no one could possibly foresee. Above her flight attendants continued their rituals. Passengers reclined. The world moved as if nothing had happened. But for Ariana Collins, the world had just changed. And soon, within the next hour, it would change for everyone. All because one woman thought she could decide who belonged in seat 1A. Ariana sat hunched forward in the narrow seat of row 31, the cool vinyl pressing against the back of her arms. The overhead lights dimmed slightly as passengers settled in, creating that familiar muted twilight that always came before takeoff. Normally, she liked that moment. It felt like the world paused just long enough to allow one breath of peace. But now every inhale was a blade, every exhale a tremor. She wrapped her arms gently around her rib cage, as if holding herself together could somehow keep the pain from spreading. She didn't want to cry. Not because she believed crying was wrong, but because something in her chest whispered that if she started, she might not be able to stop. A soft voice came from beside her. "You okay?" Ariana looked over and found an elderly man with silver hair and kind but tired eyes. He wore a faded Colorado Rockies cap and a worn jacket that smelled faintly of cedar. There was a long, gentle patience in his expression, as though he had learned to move slowly through life after losing too much too quickly. Ariana tried to answer, but the words tangled in the pain. I think something's wrong with my ribs," she whispered. The man leaned closer, concern knitting his brow. "Did you fall, sweetheart?" She hesitated. Her first instinct was always to protect others from discomfort. Her father told her it came from her mother, who had once said, "Soft hearts don't mean weak hearts, they mean we're carrying more weight than people realize." But today that instinct felt unfamiliar, foreign. "Someone hurt me," Ariana finally said. The man blinked. "On this flight?" Ariana nodded. "What happened?" Before she could answer, a shadow fell over them. Linda Hartman. Her voice dripped with irritation. "Sir, I need you to stay out of whatever this is." The old man straightened, adjusting his cap with a deliberate calm. "Ma'am, the child's in pain." "Maybe you should," I said. "Stay out of it," Linda snapped. "She's been difficult since boarding." Ariana lowered her gaze, embarrassed and angry at the same time. She hated how quickly Linda could shrink her, as if she were nothing more than a problem to be solved, or a nuisance to be moved aside. Linda leaned in, lowering her voice. "If you keep causing trouble, you'll be escorted off the flight." "Do you understand?" Ariana didn't answer. She was trying to breathe through the sharpness in her side, trying not to let fear mix with the pain. Because fear made pain louder. And today she needed to think clearly. She had to. Linda turned and marched back up the aisle, her heels tapping in brisk, irritated beats. The old man shook his head. "I don't like how she speaks to you," he murmured. Ariana forced a small smile. "It's okay." But it wasn't. And she knew it. He studied her for a long moment, then said gently, "Sometimes we tell ourselves it's okay because it's easier than admitting we've been wronged." Those words stayed with her. Wronged. A simple word, a heavy truth. She looked down at the silver pendant in her palm, the one that had started pulsing earlier as though alive. It had gone quiet, now resting against her skin like a secret waiting for the right moment. Ariana slid her thumb over the engraved letters on the back, E.L. Her mother's initials, Elise Lawson. She whispered under her breath, "I don't know what to do." But the pendant warmed again, subtle, steady, almost like a heartbeat. She felt a wave of emotion, rising fear, anger, grief, but she swallowed it down. There would be time for that later. Or maybe there wouldn't. Some days emotions simply had to wait. The intercom crackled overhead. "Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff." Ariana closed her eyes as the engines roared to life, the sound rumbling through the plane's frame and into her bones. The aircraft began to roll forward, slow and steady. Then her phone vibrated. Just once. Just enough. She pulled it out of her pocket and saw a single line of text on the screen. "No sender ID. Legacy protocol. A1 initialization complete. Awaiting user authorization." Her breath caught. She had heard her father mention the system once, just once. It was a safety architecture built by her mother, designed to protect passengers from internal misconduct and bias. But the project had been shut down years ago, dismissed as unnecessary and overly intrusive. A system like that required too much accountability, too much transparency. The Aviation Board didn't want it. And her mother. Her mother had died before the system was ever approved. Ariana thought it had been buried with her. But the pendant, the tiny chip, her father said, was a piece of your mother's mind, had carried it all along. The phone vibrated again. "Severe passenger distress detected. Initiate emergency aviation shield. Yes, no." Her thumb hovered over the screen. She hesitated. Was she really about to activate something she barely understood? Was she overreacting? Would her father be disappointed? Would her mother approve? Her heart thudded painfully against her broken ribs, making the decision harder. This wasn't just about her. It was about what would happen afterward. She knew something big might follow. Bigger than the pain she was feeling. Bigger than one flight attendant's cruel moment. She closed her eyes. She saw Linda's face, the disdain, the dismissal. She saw the passengers looking away. She saw the man beside her offering a kindness that felt too rare these days. She saw her father's tired eyes that morning. And she saw her mother's smile in the photos that still hung in her room. A quiet thought rose from somewhere deep inside. If I don't stand up now, what will change? Her thumb pressed yes. The moment she did, her phone screen flickered white, then shifted into a small circular pulse, like a sonar wave expanding outward. The engines outside grew louder as the plane accelerated down the runway, but Ariana barely heard it. The pounding in her chest drowned everything else out. Then another vibration. Authorization confirmed. Emergency aviation shield activated. System-wide sync in 14 minutes. Ariana sucked in a breath. She had expected something dramatic, sirens, alarms, flashing warnings. But instead there was only quiet, a quiet so deep it felt like the air held its breath beside her. The aircraft lifted off the ground, climbing smoothly into the morning sky. The old man beside her smiled gently. "Not your first flight, huh?" Ariana shook her head faintly. "No. Did your dad teach you to stay calm on planes?" A sad little laugh escaped her. "He tried." The man nodded. "I can tell you're brave. Brave kids grow up to be brave adults." Ariana looked out the window. Clouds drifted below like slow-moving mountains. Brave. She didn't feel brave. She felt broken. She felt small. She felt alone. But she did what she had to do. And high above the earth something invisible began to move, quiet waves of code traveling through encrypted channels, threading through satellites and aviation networks, spreading outward like ripples in a vast digital ocean. Millions of data points shifting, systems waking, protocols aligning. Ariana didn't know it yet, but with that one decision, one small press of a shaking thumb, she had begun the process that would bring the entire nation's aviation infrastructure to its knees. All because she wanted the truth to matter. Because she wanted her pain to mean something. Because she wanted to make sure that no child, no person was ever dismissed like she had been. Her ribs throbbed again, sharp and deep. She winced. The old man touched her arm gently. "We'll get you help when we land, sweetheart. Don't you worry." Ariana nodded. But she knew something he didn't. They might not land where they were supposed to. They might not land on schedule. And before this was over, the entire country would know her name. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude, slicing through a stretch of calm morning air. Golden sunlight spilled through the windows, bathing row 31 inches, a soft, hazy glow. Ariana let the warmth soak into her face, even as a deeper chill settled beneath her skin, an unease she couldn't name but couldn't ignore. Something was changing, not just in her ribs, not just in her heart, but somewhere far above her, beyond the cabin lights and the quiet conversations and the low hum of the engines. Her phone vibrated again. One line pulsed across the screen: National Aviation Grid Sync, 12 minutes remaining. Ariana inhaled sharply, and the motion sent a bolt of pain through her side. She pressed a hand to her ribs and tried to steady herself. The old man beside her noticed. "You sure you don't want me to call someone?" he whispered. She shook her head. "They won't listen." He gave her a long look, one that said he didn't understand, but he believed her anyway. That alone made her throat tighten. "Sometimes," he said, "when people refuse to listen, that's when the world needs a louder truth." Ariana almost smiled. Almost. But she couldn't. Not with her phone pulsing in her hand like a secret heartbeat. She turned the device face down on her lap and tried to breathe through the pain. Tried to push away the memory of Linda's fingers digging into her arm, the disbelief in her voice, the dismissal that cut deeper than the bruises forming beneath Ariana's hoodie. She thought of her father. Of how gentle his voice had been that morning when he said she didn't have to be brave all the time. Of how tired his eyes looked when he thought she wasn't watching. Of how he always tried to protect her from a world that didn't want to admit it could hurt her. Ariana blinked back tears. She didn't want him to find out like this. Not through a headline, not through a crisis alert, not through panicked voices at an airport terminal. She wanted to tell him herself, but she hadn't had the chance. A shiver climbed her spine. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Meanwhile, up in the cockpit, Captain Reed Lawson tapped the side of his headset, frowning at the sudden static rippling through the communication channel. "Tower, say again, you're cutting out." No response. He exchanged a puzzled look with his first officer, Naomi Brooks, who was scrolling through the aircraft's navigation panel. "Mike, something's off," she murmured. "I'm seeing interference across our data feeds." Reed adjusted his controls. "Weather anomaly, skies clear. No turbulence ahead. And the signal loss is too consistent." Reed's jaw tightened. He was a man who believed in order, patterns, systems that stayed steady in a world that wasn't. He had never liked surprises, and today was already beginning to feel like a long string of them. "What's the transponder reading?" he asked. Naomi hesitated. You should look at this." Reed leaned over and froze. A new notification blinked across the secondary navigation screen, one neither of them had seen before. "Emergency aviation shield phase 1 sync initiated. Source cabin 31A. Unmanned authorization." Reed rubbed the bridge of his nose. "That can't be right. The shield system was never deployed. It was abandoned 3 years ago." Naomi swallowed. "Apparently, it wasn't." The cockpit fell silent. Reed took a slow breath. "Okay, don't overreact. It might be a glitch." Naomi tapped the screen again. "Mike, if this is a glitch, it's the most coordinated glitch I've ever seen. Look." A map of the United States began flashing airport by airport, confirmation signals rippling outward like falling dominoes. LAX, partial shutdown. JFK, premium network, offline. Denver International, service freeze. Atlanta, first-class systems disabled. O'Hare, emergency protocol activated. Reed stared. "God help us, it's everywhere." Back in row 31, Ariana felt the cabin shift, not physically, but emotionally. A faint murmur spread through the passengers like a ripple of distant thunder. Phones buzzed, screens froze. Seat-back displays went dark. The old man beside her frowned, adjusting his glasses. "Well, that's strange." A young woman across the aisle tapped her screen repeatedly. "It just reset." "What's going on?" a businessman in front of them muttered. "Figures. This airline can't handle anything right." A flight attendant, not Linda but a younger attendant named Skylar, hurried down the aisle trying to appear calm. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said gently, "we're experiencing a temporary communication issue. Everything is stable. Please remain seated." And, before she finished, her own work tablet flickered and shut down. Passengers exchanged uneasy looks. Ariana's phone buzzed again. "Sync 9 minutes. Presidential Security Channel notified. FAA override unreachable." Her stomach twisted. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't random. This was unfolding exactly the way her mother had designed the system years ago, and exactly the way the Aviation Board had feared. The old man leaned closer. "You sure you're okay?" Ariana swallowed. "I did something." He blinked. "What kind of something?" She looked down at her hands, small, trembling, afraid and determined at once. "I activated something my mom built. Something big." He searched her face, and slowly something softened in his expression, a quiet, careful understanding. "Did you do it because you were scared?" he asked. Ariana shook her head. "Because I was hurt, and nobody cared." He nodded, as though he understood more than he let on. "Sometimes," he murmured, "the world doesn't change until someone gets hurt loud enough." Ariana's eyes filled again, anger, not weakness. "She didn't even see me," Ariana whispered. "Not really," he nodded. "People like her rarely see what's right in front of them." A pause, a deep breath, a confession. "I think I broke the whole system," Ariana whispered. He smiled faintly. "Maybe the system needed breaking." Up front, Linda Hartman marched into the galley, frustration boiling under her skin. Everything about the morning irritated her: the late boarding, the brat with the attitude, the passengers who expected too much for doing too little. She pressed her fingers into her temples. Why do we even bother with these people? Another attendant lifted her head. Linda, maybe calm down. Calm down, Linda hissed. I was humiliated by a kid this morning. A kid. A kid who didn't even belong up there. The attendant hesitated. You didn't actually hurt her, did you? Linda scoffed. Please, she's fine. But the memory replayed in her mind. Her grip, the stumble, the sharp cry the girl hadn't mean to let slip. Linda shoved the guilt down, hard. She was in my way, she insisted. And I don't get paid enough to deal with kids who think they're special. Before the attendant could reply, the cabin speakers crackled. Flight attendants, please report to the cockpit. Linda straightened. Finally. Someone needs to get a handle on this chaos. But as she walked down the aisle, she noticed something that made her stomach twist. People were staring at her. Not with annoyance, with suspicion, judgment, fear. She hated it. She hated all of it. In row 31, Ariana watched her approach, and her heart pounded like thunder. Linda's eyes scanned the seats and landed on her. Cold, cutting, sharp. Ariana felt herself shrink involuntarily. But then the old man shifted slightly, leaning closer to her in a subtle protective gesture. A tiny act, a huge difference. For the first time since boarding the plane, Ariana didn't feel entirely alone. Her phone vibrated again. Sync 6 minutes. Stage 2 will begin automatically. She closed her eyes. There was no turning back, and somewhere deep inside her chest, beneath fear, beneath pain, beneath everything, something steady rose. Something that felt like the very thing her mother had built inside her. Courage, quiet, patient, waiting. The sky outside burned bright gold as the plane carried them forward, toward the moment the world would finally have to face the truth. The plane hummed softly as it cruised eastward, but beneath that gentle noise was another rhythm, quieter, steadier, pulsing from Ariana's phone, like the slow beat of a distant drum. Sync 5 minutes. The numbers glowed faintly through the dim light of row 31, casting a pale reflection on Ariana's fingers. She curled those fingers inward, hiding the screen from passing eyes. She didn't know what stage 2 meant, not entirely. Her mother had left pieces of the system behind, fragments of an idea never finished, never approved. But Ariana knew one thing for certain. Whatever was coming, it was bigger than her. Far bigger. She swallowed hard, her throat tight with the pressure of too many thoughts and not enough space to hold them all. The ache in her ribs deepened, dull at first, then sharp enough to steal her breath. She closed her eyes, focused on breathing in short, careful sips rather than full breaths. The old man beside her watched her, silently worry swimming underneath his calm exterior. "You're getting paler," he murmured. "Are you sure you don't need medical attention?" Ariana hesitated. "Even if I ask, they won't help me. Not her. Then ask someone else." She shook her head gently. "I don't want more trouble." He studied her soft lines deepening around his eyes. "You didn't make the trouble," he said. "You're just living inside it." That sentence hit her unexpectedly hard. She looked away, blinking rapidly as her vision blurred. She wasn't trying to create chaos. She wasn't trying to break anything. She only did what she thought she had to do. But even knowing that, guilt crept in, a slow creeping fog around her thoughts. Did I go too far? Did I misjudge everything? What if people get hurt because of me? She'd been quiet her whole life, careful, always trying not to upset anyone. But today she had stepped into something irreversible. Her phone vibrated again. System breach detected. FAA override unsuccessful. Sync 4 minutes. Ariana felt panic begin to climb her chest. She clutched the pendant against her heart, as though it could anchor her back to herself. Her mother's voice filled her memory, not a sound but a feeling. Slow, warm, clear. When systems fail, people must speak louder than the system. Ariana whispered to herself, "Mom, I hope I'm doing this right." Up in the cockpit, Captain Reed Lawson ran both hands through his hair, messing up the near-perfect comb he always kept. That alone told Naomi Brooks just how concerned he was. "Okay," he exhaled. "Walk me through this again." Slowly, Naomi tapped the navigation screen. The emergency aviation shield appears to be reactivating itself. The sync is propagating through national airspace infrastructure. Every major airport is receiving the same signals, but they shouldn't, Reed muttered. The system was never approved. It was never released. Half the code was destroyed after Elise Lawson's. He stopped. Naomi looked up. After her accident, Reed nodded slowly. Elise had been his mentor in flight school. A brilliant engineer with a mind for patterns and a heart for fairness. When she died, the industry lost more than a genius. They lost a conscience. Naomi leaned toward the screen. "Captain, look at this." A string of code scrolled rapidly across the display. At the end of it, a signature appeared. E.L. Protocol. Lawson safety loop. Reed felt a chill settle over him. "Elise, you clever, stubborn woman." Naomi frowned. "You knew her, didn't you?" He nodded. She believed safety meant caring for the people who didn't have a voice. She wasn't afraid to challenge anyone, executives, regulators, even me. And now her system's waking up. Apparently so. Naomi hesitated. "Should we be worried?" Reed let out a long breath. Worry never stopped a storm. Back in row 31, Ariana clasped her pendant so tightly her knuckles whitened. The plane cabin buzzed with subtle confusion, people whispering, attendants checking equipment, the hum of uncertainty building like pressure behind a dam. Skylar, the young attendant, hurried down the aisle again. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, voice slightly strained, "we're working on a temporary systems issue. Please remain calm. Everything is under control." Ariana saw the way Skylar's fingers trembled on the edge of a seat. She didn't look calm. She didn't look reassured. And then Linda Hartman returned, her posture stiff, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. Her eyes found Ariana instantly. Ariana's stomach knotted. Linda approached, leaning into the aisle as though drawn by gravity. "You," she said coldly. "Stand up." Ariana blinked. "Why? Don't argue. Get up." The old man beside her straightened, gaze firm. "She can't stand. She's injured." Linda fired him a glare. "Sir, this is none of your business." "The moment you put your hands on her," he said quietly, "you made it my business." Whispers erupted around them. Ariana's heart pounded. Linda's lips tightened. And for the first time, a flicker of uncertainty passed behind her eyes. "Fine," she snapped. "But I need to see your ticket again." Ariana flinched at her tone. I don't have it." You lost your ticket?" Linda pounced. "Convenient." Ariana's voice shrank. "No, you wouldn't take it earlier." Linda crossed her arms. "Show me your ID then." Ariana reached slowly, very slowly, for her backpack, fighting the throbbing ache in her ribs. Before she could unzip it, her phone buzzed. A notification illuminated the dark fabric of her hoodie. Linda's eyes narrowed. "Give me that phone." Ariana froze. No, that wasn't a request. For a moment, just a moment, Ariana saw something raw in the woman's face. Fear or anger, or both tangled together. Linda wasn't just furious. She was afraid to lose control. She reached out, but this time Ariana jerked back, not violently but firmly, protectively, shielding the phone against her chest. "Don't touch me," Ariana whispered. Linda's jaw clenched. "Young lady." Then the speakers crackled overhead. A voice, calm but tense, filled the cabin. "Flight attendants, secure the cabin and return to your stations." Repeat, "Secure the cabin." Passengers looked around nervously. Linda's expression faltered. She hesitated, torn between authority and sudden uncertainty. Then, against everything in her nature, she stepped back. "This isn't over," she hissed, retreating up the aisle. Ariana let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The old man placed a steady hand on the armrest. "You handled that well." "I was scared," Ariana whispered. "Being scared and being brave aren't opposites," he said gently. "They're teammates." Ariana's eyes softened. "I don't feel brave. I think you're braver than you know." Her phone vibrated again. "Sync 2 minutes. Stage 2 will include system-wide shutdown of premium services, deviation alerts sent to all pilots, national oversight pending." She stared at the words, chest tight. This was happening. Right now. And she couldn't stop it, even if she wanted to. A flicker of doubt twisted through her cold, sharp unwelcome. What if I'm making everything worse? What if this hurts people who did nothing wrong? What if Mom didn't want this? She blinked hard. Tears blurred the glowing text. The old man noticed. "You're holding a lot," he murmured. "I didn't mean to start something this big," Ariana said weakly. I just wanted someone to care. Someone to see what happened." Sometimes, he said, it takes a storm to show people the damage they ignored. Ariana swallowed, her throat tight. The plane hummed around her, unaware of the pressure building, not from turbulence but from truth awakening. Her phone pulsed again. "Sync. 1 minute." The cabin lights flickered. Passengers gasped. Outside sunlight flashed across the wing. Ariana gripped her pendant, her ribs screaming, her heart pounding like a drum, calling something old and buried to the surface. And far below, across the country, airport networks shifted into crisis mode, each one locking, freezing, shutting down one after another. A chain reaction, a cascade, a storm her mother designed but never lived to see. A storm Ariana had just unleashed. The moment the cabin lights flickered, a hush fell over the plane, small at first, barely noticeable. But then the overhead fans stuttered, the reading lights blinked twice, and the soft hum that usually wrapped a flight in its familiar cocoon suddenly dimmed. Passengers exchanged uneasy glances. A few shifted in their seats. Someone muttered, "Is that normal?" It wasn't. Ariana felt it before she understood it, an invisible tightening, like the air itself had taken a sharp breath and forgotten how to exhale. Her ribs throbbed in harsh pulses, but the ache in her chest wasn't just physical anymore. It felt connected, as though the pain inside her had stretched outward and wrapped itself around the entire aircraft. Her phone buzzed once, just one silent, powerful signal. Sync complete. Stage 2 initiated. She swallowed hard. The old man beside her leaned in. "What does that mean?" Her voice wavered. I'm not sure. Stage 2 is bigger." "How much bigger?" he asked gently. Ariana looked down at the screen where new messages began scrolling faster than she could read. "Premium access disabled. All airports lounge systems offline. First class operations suspended. Security audit triggered. Error. FAA override. Rejected. Emergency broadcast pending." A wave of dizziness washed over her. This wasn't something she could undo. Not now. Maybe not ever. The old man placed a steady hand on her arm. "It's okay. Breathe, sweetheart." But the breath wouldn't come. Not fully. Not without the stab of pain reminding her of how all this started, the humiliation, the disbelief, the dismissiveness. Her body hurt, but her spirit felt bruised in a way even deeper. Up in the cockpit, Captain Reed Lawson and Naomi Brooks stared at their screens as a cascade of alerts lit them up like a Christmas display gone wrong. Reed's voice was low, steady, the kind of calm that only came from decades spent facing emergencies without losing himself. Naomi confirmed the feed. Naomi's fingers flew across the panel, tapping through layers of diagnostics. Confirmed. "Mike, the national priority channels are all being rerouted through something called the Lawson Loop." Reed froze. "That name," Naomi said, looking up slowly. "That's not a coincidence, is it?" Reed's chest tightened. "Elise Lawson created that loop when she was developing the shield. It was designed to bypass corrupt internal channels if a passenger's civil rights were violated mid-flight. But it was never authorized. No one wanted to take responsibility for the political fallout. Naomi swallowed. Then how is it working now? Reed stared straight ahead. Because Elise never designed things halfway. Naomi drew in a shaky breath. Mike, look. A fresh alert appeared. Source verified passenger ID. Ariana Collins relation. Elise Lawson. Daughter. Reed's jaw clenched. The name hit him with the force of an unexpected storm. Elise Lawson, the woman who had once stood in this very cockpit explaining concepts so bold the industry wasn't ready for them. The woman who saw people before systems, fairness before profit. The woman who fought for safety not as a checkbox, but as a moral responsibility. And now her child was the epicenter of a national emergency. Reed whispered under his breath, Elise, what did you leave behind? Back in the cabin, passengers began raising their voices. What's going on? Why are my screens down? My Wi-Fi isn't working. Is the plane okay? Skylar Wade ran up and down the aisle trying to soothe them. She offered small smiles, gentle reassurances, but her own fear leaked through the corners of her eyes. Ariana watched her guilt twinging in her stomach. Skylar wasn't the enemy. Not everyone was Linda. Her chest tightened again. She clutched the pendant. Mom, I wish you were here. A fresh wave of pain radiated through her ribs, and she winced so visibly that Skylar noticed and hurried over. Sweetie, are you hurt? You look pale. Ariana tried to answer, but Linda Hartman appeared behind Skylar like a dark cloud blocking the sun. She's fine, Linda snapped. She's been exaggerating since boarding. Skylar blinked. Linda? She doesn't look fine. Linda's jaw worked. Lots of passengers look pale. It's altitude, not an emergency. A flicker of anger flared inside Ariana, small but bright. You hurt me, she whispered. Linda's eyes narrowed. Watch your tone. Skylar stepped forward, protective. Linda, maybe you should, I said. She's fine. Linda's voice cut through the cabin like ice. Ariana felt something cold settle in her stomach. Not fear now, but a hard truth rising to the surface. Some people don't see the harm they cause because they don't believe the harmed person matters. Her phone buzzed again. Stage 2. System alert, national priority broadcast preparing. Stand by for federal oversight. Link. Ariana's heart jumped into her throat. Federal oversight, what did that even look like? What had she activated? Her ribs throbbed again harder. She pressed a hand to her side and bent forward slightly, swallowing a sharp cry. Skylar gasped. She really is hurt. Linda's expression tightened, fear flickering behind irritation. She's exaggerating to get sympathy. Linda, Skylar said firmly, you can't just dismiss. But she didn't finish because the overhead speakers crackled to life. Not the usual soft chime, not the captain's calm voice. A disembodied tone, firm, official, chilling. Attention, passengers and crew. This is the Federal Aviation Emergency Channel. Gasps erupted. People froze. Ariana felt the world tilt slightly. This broadcast is part of a national safety protocol, and use it as active ideas. All premium aviation services across the United States have been temporarily suspended. Passengers erupted in confusion. What's suspended? Is this a terrorist threat? Are we safe? Skylar looked around, horrified. Oh my God, the voice continued, unshaken by panic. The system was triggered by an internally validated report of passenger mistreatment on this flight. Every head turned. Every set of eyes scanned the cabin. Ariana's heart pounded faster. She felt the weight of those gazes like stones. Until further notice, the voice said, all major airports are entering emergency audit mode. A collective cry rose through the plane. Emergency audit mode. What does that mean? This is insane. Which passenger? Ariana curled into herself. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the attention gone. She wanted the pain to fade, the whispers to stop, the world to shrink, until it was just her and the quiet memory of her mother's voice. But then, something else stirred inside her. A memory. Not a soft one, but a fierce one. Her mother saying, "Courage isn't loud. It's the small decision you make when no one else will." Ariana lifted her head slowly. She didn't speak, not yet, but her spine straightened. Her dark eyes steadied. Her breath quivered but did not break. Linda stared at her face, draining of color. Not because she understood, but because she felt her control slipping. Ariana's phone vibrated again. Stage 2, complete, awaiting visual validation. Passenger, Ariana Collins. A sudden clarity swept over her. This wasn't just about what Linda did. This wasn't just about her ribs. This wasn't just about a seat in first class. This was about being seen, being believed, being valued in a world that didn't always make room for people who looked like her. She took one careful breath, bracing against the pain. The old man beside her whispered, "Whatever happens now, you're not alone." For the first time since the assault, Ariana believed him. And outside the plane, far below the nation's airport grid flickered. 12 major hubs shut down premium operations. 5 more froze their security systems. And dozens of emergency channels lit up with the same alert. System override, source confirmed. Passenger 31A. The sky outside remained peaceful, but the world beneath them was just beginning to unravel. For a moment the cabin was so quiet that Ariana could hear her own breath, thin, uneven, cutting through the silence like a fragile thread. The announcement from the Federal Aviation Emergency Channel still echoed in her ears, vibrating through the air, as if the plane itself was holding on to every word. People stared, not with curiosity, not with kindness, but with the restless confusion of those who sense something important and frightening has just shifted beneath their feet. Ariana felt the weight of those gazes pressing into her small frame. Her ribs throbbed, her chest squeezed tight, but the ache inside her heart felt heavier than the physical pain. She wanted to disappear, just shrink down to nothing, melt into the seat, vanish into the thin air at 3,800 feet. But she couldn't. It was too late for disappearing. The world was watching now, even if it didn't know her name yet. Beside her, the old man cleared his throat. "You," holding up Ariana, swallowed. I don't know." She wasn't sure if she meant physically, emotionally, or something far deeper. Everything inside her felt tangled. Fear knotted with guilt, anger laced with shame, determination, fighting with a small, trembling voice, whispering that maybe all of this was too much for one girl. He nodded gently, as if he understood feelings she couldn't put into words. Sometimes things have to break before they can be fixed. Ariana's eyes stung. "But what if I broke it wrong?" His gaze softened. "Truth doesn't break wrong. It breaks loud." Before she could reply, the intercom crackled again, this time with the calm but strained voice of Captain Reed Lawson. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Please remain seated." The cabin fell silent again. Reed's voice carried the tone of a man walking a tightrope, steady, careful, hiding the storm beneath. "As many of you heard, a national emergency audit has been initiated. This is not a terrorist threat. I repeat, this is not a terrorist threat. All aircraft remain stable, and we are in no immediate danger." A murmur spread, tension loosening just slightly. "However," Reed continued, "we have been instructed to maintain altitude while federal communication systems recalibrate. We expect further updates shortly." Then a small pause, too small for most passengers to catch, but Ariana heard it, she felt it. "And to those affected by earlier cabin events, I assure you we are addressing the matter." Ariana blinked. The captain knew. He knew something happened. He hadn't said her name. He hadn't called out Linda. But his tone was unmistakable. Someone believed her. Someone in authority. And that small flicker, just a spark, was enough to steady her breath. At the front of the plane, Linda Hartman stood frozen just outside the galley. The captain's words hit her like a physical blow. Her palms went cold. Her heartbeat stuttered, then raced. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." The young attendant, Skylar Wade, approached her cautiously. "Linda, are you okay?" Linda's voice trembled. He can't be talking about that. About the girl. He can't. Skylar's expression tightened. What did you do exactly? Linda's jaw snapped shut. The image of Ariana curled forward in pain, clutching her ribs, rose like a ghost she couldn't push away. For the first time, doubt pierced through the wall she had built around herself. What if, she whispered, barely audible, what if I really did? But she couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't face it, not yet. Meanwhile, in row 31, Ariana pressed the pendant firmly against her chest. Its warmth felt alive, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her phone lit up again. Stage 3, pending, awaiting passenger validation. Prompt will appear in 3 minutes. Her hands trembled. 3 minutes, for what she whispered. The old man leaned closer. You don't have to decide alone. Ariana shook her head. I don't even know what stage 3 is. I didn't mean for any of this. Her voice broke. I just wanted someone to see me. He nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. And now they do. But Ariana wasn't sure that was a good thing. You're scared, he said softly. Yes. He smiled, small, warm, carrying a kind of wisdom that only comes from surviving things that never fully heal. Courage doesn't erase fear, he murmured. It just gives you a place to stand with it. A tear escaped down Ariana's cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed, but the old man didn't comment. He simply sat there, offering presence instead of pressure, something so rare it made Ariana's chest tighten for a different reason. Then the plane suddenly dipped only slightly, but enough for passengers to gasp and grip armrests. Ariana winced sharply as her ribs flared with fresh pain. A mechanical chime sounded overhead. Skylar's voice followed, urgent but composed. Everyone please remain seated. We hit a pocket of unexpected air. All is stable. But Ariana saw something Skylar didn't. Her phone flickered again. Federal satellite channel lock initiated. Aviation priority connection. 92%. The world outside the window stretched endless and blue. The clouds moved gentle and slow, unaware of the tension building inside the aircraft. Then another flash on her screen. Stage 3 activation requires identity confirmation. Do you wish to proceed? Yes, no. Her breath caught. The old man's hand hovered near her arm, not touching but offering strength. You don't have to answer right away, he said. But Ariana knew the truth. If she didn't answer, the system would stall. And if it stalled, the audit might fail. And if the audit failed, the truth of what happened to her and countless others before her might disappear again. Buried, dismissed, ignored, just like Linda wanted, just like the industry preferred, just like the world often did to quiet black girls who didn't fit the neat boxes people expected. She took a trembling breath. Then another. Her ribs ached, but her resolve slowly rose above the pain, steady and unwavering like the voice in her memory. Her mother's voice. When you speak the truth, the world may shake. But shake is how new ground forms. Ariana's thumb hovered over the screen. The seconds ticked down. Validation needed in 60 seconds. Her chest tightened. What if I'm wrong, she whispered. The old man shook his head. Truth doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being honest. Ariana swallowed hard. Linda's cold voice echoed in her mind. Her father's tired but gentle face. Her mother's smile in old photos. Her own pain, raw, real, unarguable. She exhaled, slowly, deliberately. The pendant warmed. Her thumb pressed yes. A soft tone chimed. Then the screen went dark for half a heartbeat and lit up again with a message that made her breath stop entirely. Identity confirmed. Ariana Elise Collins, daughter of Elise Lawson. Legacy protocol full release initiated. Ariana's pulse thundered. The entire aircraft felt suddenly smaller, the air thinner, the moment heavier. Down the aisle, Linda stood frozen, staring as if she sensed something, some shift, some judgment creeping closer. Passengers murmured louder. Screens rebooted with the same government seal. And above the hum of distant engines, a new voice, calm, strong, unmistakably federal, spoke into the cabin. Passenger 31A, please prepare for direct contact. This is the U.S. Civil Aviation Oversight Division. Ariana's eyes widened. Her world narrowed to a single point of truth. Everything she'd been afraid to say, everything she'd held inside, everything she never wanted to become, was now being asked of her. Not as a child, not as a victim, but as the person who had awakened a system her mother built to protect the voiceless. The sky outside burned a bright, endless blue. And Ariana Collins' broken ribs, bruised heart, trembling hands sat still and quiet, waiting to speak her truth, to a nation finally forced to listen. For a long moment Ariana didn't move, couldn't move. It felt like the whole cabin leaned toward her, the air stretching tight and thin as a drum skin. Her heart beat fast, sharp, trapped behind her damaged ribs. The pain was a steady throb now, one that pulsed in time with the rising awareness that every passenger on board was hearing the same voice she heard. The U.S. Civil Aviation Oversight Division, calling for her, by seat number, and soon by name. She tightened her grip on the pendant, the small silver shape warming against her palm. Her mother's initials pressed into her skin like a whisper carved into metal. The old man beside her exhaled softly. "You're going to be okay. Just breathe through it." She nodded but didn't trust herself to speak. Her throat felt like it was closing. Not from fear alone, but from the weight of something bigger than she'd ever carried. A faint chime sounded through the cabin. Then the voice returned. "Passenger in seat 31A, this is the Federal Oversight Team. Please confirm your readiness to engage." Passengers gasped. Some craned their necks. Others whispered fiercely, trying to guess who 31A was and why the federal government was calling for them. A woman 2 rows up muttered, "Whoever they are, this is insane." A man across the aisle whispered, "What did they do?" Ariana felt their words crawling across her skin. Judgment, curiosity, fear, everything except understanding. The old man leaned closer, his voice gentle but anchored. "You don't have to let their fear become yours." Ariana swallowed. "I didn't want all of this." "I know," he said softly. "But sometimes life hands us a burden because we're the ones who can carry it, even if we don't want to." She didn't feel capable of carrying anything right now, not the pain in her ribs, not the system she had unleashed, and certainly not the responsibility of speaking to federal authorities with nearly 200 strangers listening. Another chime, more insistent this time. "Passenger 31A, please confirm contact." Skylar Wade, the junior flight attendant, moved quietly down the aisle until she reached Ariana. Her eyes were full of worry and something close to guilt. "Honey," Skylar whispered, crouching down beside her, "they're asking for you." Ariana nodded faintly. Skylar hesitated, her voice softer. "Do you want me to stay with you while you answer?" Ariana blinked at her. No one had asked her that, not all morning. Maybe not for months. "Yes," Ariana whispered. "Please." Skylar offered a small, supportive smile and stayed kneeling right beside her, forming a quiet barrier between Ariana and the staring passengers. Meanwhile, 2 rows behind them, Linda Hartman remained frozen in place, pale, stiff, her eyes fixated on row 31 like it was a courtroom where she stood accused. She whispered to herself, "This can't be happening. This can't be happening," but it was. And deep down in the place where excuses could no longer reach, Linda felt a creeping truth. Her actions had started something she was not prepared to face. Ariana took one steadying breath, sharp, painful but enough, and tapped her phone's screen. A soft vibration followed, and the voice in the cabin shifted to a more direct tone, as if directed through a private channel, yet still audible to everyone. "Passenger 31A. Are you able to hear us?" Ariana cleared her throat. Her voice came out small but clear enough. "Yes." The cabin reacted instantly. Every head turned, every passenger leaned toward her. Even Linda's breath caught in her throat. the voice continued. We recognize your identity through a verified legacy authorization. Ariana Collins, you have triggered the emergency aviation shield. A murmur swept through the cabin like wind through dry grass. Ariana closed her eyes. She didn't want her full name said aloud, didn't want to be exposed like that, but there was no hiding now. Your activation has initiated a system-wide audit, the voice said. We need confirmation. Are you acting under distress? Ariana felt Skylar squeeze her shoulder gently. The old man nodded, urging her to speak the truth. She swallowed shakily. Yes. The cabin erupted. Voices rose. Passengers talking over each other. What does she mean? Distress? Who hurt her? What kind of system reacts like this? Is this kid some kind of hacker? No, she said. Emergency shield. That's federal level. Skylar stood and lifted her hands. Everyone, please stay calm. But calm was a distant memory. Even so, the federal voice spoke over the chaos, steady and commanding. Passenger Collins, we need to confirm the nature of your distress. Ariana's breath hitched. Her ribs screamed. Her mind spun. But when she looked down at her hoodie creased, rumpled, hiding bruises, she could already feel forming deep and dark beneath her skin. Something inside her shifted. Something tired. Something done with shrinking. She spoke carefully, quietly, but every syllable carried weight. A flight attendant hurt me. Silence. Complete shocking silence. Then, the cabin uproared again. Who? When you mean physically, where's the attendant? This is unbelievable. Even the crew exchanged horrified looks. All except one. Linda's face drained of blood. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted soundlessly. No one needed Ariana to say the name. The truth was already spreading like wildfire. The federal voice returned, calm but razor-sharp. Passenger Collins, do you require medical assistance? Ariana hesitated, pressing a palm to her chest. Yes. My ribs. I think they're broken. Skylar gasped, eyes filling with tears. Oh my God, why didn't she say something sooner? Ariana looked down. I tried. The old man closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of that truth sinking deep. The voice continued, Flight crew, you are ordered to provide immediate care and isolate the involved party. The entire cabin turned toward the front, toward Linda. Her lips trembled, her hands shook, her voice cracked as she whispered, I didn't know she was hurt that badly. The passengers' reactions were swift and merciless. You kicked a kid, you dragged her down the aisle. She's tiny. What did you think would happen? This is a federal offense. Linda staggered back, clutching the edge of a seat, as if the world were spinning around her. I didn't mean, I swear. But remorse spoken too late sounds a lot like fear. Skylar stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. Linda, please go to the back galley, now. Linda didn't move. Skylar's tone hardened. Now. With the whole cabin watching, Linda finally backed away step by step until she disappeared behind the galley curtain, her figure shaking. Ariana didn't feel triumphant, only tired. So tired. The federal voice returned, Passenger Collins, an emergency landing is being arranged. We will coordinate medical response immediately. Ariana's breath shuddered. Emergency landing. But then a second message appeared quietly on her phone, one the cabin did not hear. Ariana, your mother's system was built to protect you. We are here now. You did the right thing. Her vision blurred. Not from pain, not from fear, but from the sudden powerful ache of being believed. Skylar knelt beside her again. We'll take care of you, honey. I promise. The old man nodded. You're brave. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Ariana closed her eyes, let herself lean back, let her breath soften, let the truth settle around her at last. For the first time that day, the sky outside the window felt just a little less heavy. The captain's announcement of an emergency landing rippled through the cabin like a cold wind. People clutched seatbacks, whispered urgently, exchanged worried glances. Even for seasoned travelers, emergency landings were unsettling. But for Ariana Collins, the words settled somewhere deeper into a place where fear met fragile relief. The plane had dipped slightly, just enough for her ribs to scream in protest. She inhaled sharply, gripping the edge of her armrest. Skylar remained by her side, one hand resting gently on Ariana's shoulder. "Honey, you're doing so well," she whispered. Ariana nodded faintly. "Is the plane okay?" Skylar managed a small smile. "The plane is safe. The world's a little loud right now, but the plane is safe." Ariana blinked, unsure if the world she meant was outside the aircraft or inside it. Passengers still buzzed with fear and disbelief, but their attention had shifted from guessing to grappling with the truth. Something had happened on board, something real, something serious. And the girl they had ignored earlier was the center of a story unfolding in real time. The old man beside Ariana leaned closer. "You're going to make it through this landing," he said quietly. "Just focus on breathing, sweetheart." Slow, steady, gentle. Ariana followed his rhythm, though every breath felt jagged. She pressed her palm to her hoodie where the sharp edges of her broken ribs pulsed. Pain reminded her she was still here, still hurting, still fighting. She wasn't sure which part was harder. At the front of the plane, Captain Reed Lawson and First Officer Naomi Brooks worked with steady hands and tight jaws. "We have clearance to descend," Naomi confirmed, scanning her instruments. "We're being directed to Kansas City International. Emergency response already mobilized." Reed exhaled, though it didn't ease the tension in his shoulders. "Keep communication open. I want updates every 30 seconds. Naomi hesitated. "You think Linda realizes how serious this is?" Reed's voice hardened. "She will. The moment federal investigators board, she'll understand exactly what she did." He paused. "And she'll understand that Elise Lawson's daughter deserves justice." Naomi nodded, her gaze softening. "You really admired Elise, didn't you?" Reed stared into the cloud-laced horizon ahead, eyes distant. "She had a way of making people feel seen, especially the ones the world tried to overlook." He cleared his throat, shifting back into work mode. "Let's bring this plane home." In the back galley, hidden behind the thin privacy curtain, Linda Hartman sat on a metal jump seat, trembling. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She kept replaying the moment she dragged Ariana down the aisle. The girl's small frame, her gasp of pain, the brief look of shock and betrayal, and the blood-draining announcement that had followed. She pressed her palms to her forehead. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she whispered to herself. "I didn't mean—" But another voice, one she'd long buried, rose inside her. "You didn't ask if she was okay. You didn't check. You didn't pause. You didn't care." Her chest tightened. She felt like she was drowning inside her own guilt. Skylar's voice echoed in her memory. "Intent doesn't erase impact." Linda wrapped her arms around herself. For the first time in years, she didn't know who she was anymore. And the fear of the consequences, real federal consequences, pressed down like a weight too heavy for her shaking shoulders. Back in row 31, Ariana stared at the window. The world outside was a blur of pale blue and drifting white. Clouds rolled beneath them like shifting hills, soft and unthreatening. From up here, the earth seemed calm, peaceful, full of possibilities. But inside the plane, tension coiled like a tightly wound spring. Her phone buzzed again. A new line of text appeared, private, quiet, and meant only for her eyes. "Ariana, emergency teams will meet you upon landing. You are not alone. Your mother's system is functioning exactly as she designed." Ariana pressed the pendant once more. It warmed instantly. "Mom," she whispered, "I wish you could see this. I wish you could tell me I didn't mess everything up." She blinked hard, pushing back tears. The old man noticed. "What's going through your head, kiddo?" She hesitated. "I keep thinking, maybe I should have just stayed quiet. Maybe all of this is too big. Everything's shutting down. People are scared. It's my fault." He shook his head instantly. "No, no, sweetheart. Don't take the weight of other people's ignorance on yourself. But everything's shutting down." "Yes," he said gently. Because the system ignored people like you for too long. Sometimes things need to stop before they can go forward in the right way. Ariana's voice trembled. What if I didn't deserve first class? He took a deep breath as if steadying himself. Listen to me carefully. You didn't need to deserve anything. You belonged in that seat because you had a ticket. That's the only requirement. Ariana lowered her gaze. Linda didn't think so. She saw her prejudice, he said softly. Not you. A silence settled between them, soft, full, meaningful. Then the plane jolted slightly as it began its descent, and Ariana sucked in a painful breath. Skylar squeezed her hand gently. Almost there. Ariana nodded, trying to brace herself for landing. Each minute felt longer than the last. As the plane continued its controlled descent, the cabin lights dimmed, and passengers clung to their armrests. The pressure shift made Ariana's ribs feel like they were being squeezed by an invisible hand. Her breath hitched. Her eyes closed tight as a wave of pain rolled through her. Skylar immediately crouched closer. Sweetheart, does it hurt more? Ariana nodded. It feels like something's moving inside. It hurts. The old man frowned. She needs a medic the moment these wheels touch the ground. She'll get one, Skylar promised. Ariana's phone buzzed again. Emergency landing ETA 9 minutes. Federal investigators prepared to board immediately. She swallowed. 9 minutes, she whispered. 9 minutes, Skylar echoed, and you'll be somewhere safe. But Ariana didn't feel safe. Not yet. Her heart pounded in her ears, her ribs screamed, her thoughts swirled like a storm. She remembered flashes: Linda's grip, the sudden stumble, the sharp kick, the humiliation of being dragged past staring eyes, the loneliness of knowing no one had stood up for her. And then her mother's voice drifting into her memory. If something happens to you up there, I want you to have a way to defend yourself, even if I'm not there to help. Ariana opened her eyes, a soft determination rising inside her. She wasn't alone. Not really. The pendant grew warm again, gentle, steady, like a heartbeat close to hers. When the plane broke through the lowest layer of clouds, Kansas City sprawled across the landscape, runways stretching long and silver under the afternoon light, emergency vehicles lining the tarmac like quiet waiting silhouettes. Gasps filled the cabin. Oh my God, look at all the trucks. Is that for us? Yes. All for them, all for her. The old man breathed out slowly. They're ready. Ariana didn't know if that made her feel relieved or terrified. The landing gear dropped with a heavy thud. The plane dipped lower. Passengers held their breath. Ariana's ribs flared with unbearable pain. She clenched her teeth, tears filling her eyes. We're almost there, Skylar whispered, brushing a loose curl from Ariana's forehead. The nose tilted up slightly, the wheels screeched against the runway, then the plane touched down. Hard. Ariana cried out as pain shot through her body like lightning. Her vision blurred. Her breath shuddered. But they were on the ground. They made it. Applause rippled through the cabin, tense, shaky, relieved. Captain Reed's voice returned over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, stay seated. Medical teams and federal authorities will be boarding shortly. Please remain calm. Skylar squeezed Ariana's hand again. You did it, sweetheart. You held on. The old man nodded, voice thick with emotion. I'm proud of you. Ariana leaned back into her seat, exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally. Every part of her felt scraped raw. But beneath the pain and the fear, something new stirred. A fragile, flickering sense of justice. Outside the window, red and blue lights flashed against the plane's silver body. A team of medics sprinted up the portable stairs. Behind them, federal agents approached, purposeful and focused. Ariana closed her eyes. Soon the truth would be pulled into the light, and she, small, hurting, brave, was ready to finally speak it. When the aircraft door finally cracked open, a cold rush of outside air swept through the cabin, not harsh, but sharp enough to make hearts jump. People craned their necks. The aisle lights glowed faintly, guiding the emergency medical team up the narrow stairs. Ariana Collins watched the shapes appear, first boots, then navy jackets, then the bright red cross patches on their sleeves. They moved with calm purpose, not rushing, not panicking, just doing what they were trained for. For Ariana, that simple competence felt like the first safe thing she had seen in hours. Skylar Wade leaned close. "They're here for you, sweetheart. They're going to help." The elderly man across the aisle nodded. "You'll be in good hands." Ariana tried to smile, but her breath caught instead. The slightest shift sent a stabbing pain through her ribs. One of the paramedics, a woman with steady brown eyes, stopped in front of her. "Ariana Collins?" she asked gently. Ariana nodded. "My name is Dr. Emily Carter. We're here to take care of you, okay? I'm going to ask a few questions before we move you." Ariana braced herself, clutching the edge of the seat. "How long ago did the injury occur?" "About maybe an hour, maybe more," Ariana whispered, unsure. "It's hard to tell." Dr. Carter nodded, jotting something on her tablet. "Breathing difficulty, yes. When the plane landed, it hurt." "I know. We'll help you breathe easier soon." Behind the medical team, several men and women in dark suits stepped into the cabin. Their expressions were serious, determined, focused. Federal agents. People started whispering again. "Who are they? Is someone getting arrested? Oh my God, this is real." Ariana could feel the tension shift in the air like a tide pulling in a new direction. Agent Porter, a tall black man with a quiet, powerful presence, stepped forward and addressed the passengers in a clear, respectful tone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We will be conducting standard interviews related to an onboard incident. Thank you for your cooperation." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Authority pulsed through every word. Linda Hartman, still hiding near the front galley, stiffened at the sound of federal footsteps. She looked like a small, crumpled version of the woman who had strutted confidently through the cabin just hours earlier. Now her hands clutched her, uniform knuckles white. Dr. Carter gently placed a hand near Ariana's ribs. "I'm going to check for additional fractures. Let me know if this hurts too much." Ariana nodded. But the moment the pressure touched the tender area, she gasped sharply and tears welled up. Okay, doctor," Carter whispered. "I know that hurt. No more pressure there." She looked to the medic beside her. "Prepare the stretcher. We need to keep her stabilized." Ariana's voice was small but steady. Can I walk?" "No, sweetheart, doctor," Carter said softly. "Walking could make it worse. We'll lift you gently. I promise." Ariana's breath trembled. She didn't like feeling helpless, not after everything she'd endured, but she nodded. Skylar squeezed her shoulder. "You're doing amazing." Behind them, the paramedics unfolded a compact medical stretcher. The sound of metal clicking open filled the quiet space, a reminder that this moment was real. Before they lifted her, Agent Porter approached with measured steps. He crouched, so he was eye level with her, not towering, not intimidating, just present. "Ariana," he said softly, "I know you're in pain. I just need to ask you one question before the medics take you out." She blinked up at him. Was the injury caused by a member of the flight crew? Ariana hesitated. Skylar's hand tightened gently. The elderly man across the aisle leaned forward, brows heavy with expectation. Ariana looked around the cabin. The passengers who had stayed silent earlier now watched with wide eyes, some ashamed, some afraid, some finally understanding the weight of what they witnessed. She inhaled slowly, though it hurt. Then she answered, voice trembling but unmistakably clear, "Yes, she kicked me. Hard. Then she dragged me." The cabin buzzed with hushed shock. Agent Porter nodded once calm, acknowledging not surprised. "Thank you, Ariana. We'll take it from here." He stood, signaled another agent and spoke quietly, "Find Linda Hartman." The paramedics moved quickly now, lifting Ariana with practiced coordination. She winced, clutching the edges of the blanket they wrapped around her. Skylar whispered, "I'll walk with you until they tell me I can't." Ariana nodded gratefully. As they carried her down the aisle, passengers parted like the sea. Some looked guilty, some avoided eye contact. Some watched with sorrow, wishing they had done something earlier. One woman whispered, "Lord, help that poor child." Another man murmured, "I should have spoken up." Regret hung in the air like a shadow. When the stretcher reached the front of the plane, a sharp voice broke through. "This is ridiculous. I didn't do anything." Linda Hartman. Agent Porter turned toward her. Linda Hartman. Her face was pale. "I'm a flight attendant with 22 years of experience. I know procedure. I know protocol. I was doing my job." Agent Porter's tone remained even. "You are being detained for questioning in connection with the assault of a minor during a commercial flight." "That girl is lying," Linda snapped, pointing at Ariana. She's exaggerating. Kids these days." Her voice cracked when she saw Ariana's face, small, hurting, wrapped in emergency blankets. For the first time, Linda's mask shifted. Cracks appeared in her rigid posture. Something like fear or remorse flashed in her eyes. But it was too late. Agent Porter signaled to his partner. "Ma'am, please place your hands where I can see them." Passengers stared stunned as Linda Hartman, the woman who had strutted down the aisle with authority, now trembled under federal command. "No, wait," she stammered. "You don't understand. I didn't mean to." Agent Porter spoke gently but firmly. "This is not the place for statements. You'll have an opportunity to speak with investigators." As they guided her away, Linda's gaze darted back to Ariana, wide, overwhelmed, almost pleading. But Ariana didn't look at her. She closed her eyes. The paramedics moved forward. Outside, the world exploded into motion. Ambulances lined the tarmac. Reporters stood behind barricades, cameras flashing. Airport security rushed to clear a path. The wind carried the faint smell of jet fuel and warm concrete. Ariana felt all of it, only in flashes, drifting in and out of pain. She heard murmured voices, clipped radio chatter. People running, lights reflecting on chrome. Dr. Carter leaned over her. "You're doing great, sweetheart. We're almost inside." Skylar walked alongside the stretcher until an airport officer gently stopped her. "Ma'am, you need to remain on the aircraft for statements." Skylar nodded, touched Ariana's hand one last time, and whispered, "You're not alone. Remember that." Ariana whispered back, "Thank you." The elderly man had followed as far as he could, stopping right outside the plane door. "Be brave, kiddo," he called softly. Ariana managed a tiny smile. She was lifted into the ambulance. The doors closed. Darkness, but a safe kind of darkness. Inside the moving ambulance, Ariana stared at the ceiling lights, small circles glowing above her like distant moons. Her chest rose and fell in painful, uneven breaths. "Doctor?" Carter checked her oxygen levels, then glanced down with a reassuring smile. "You're stable. We're heading to St. Luke's Hospital. You'll get scans, treatment, and pain relief soon." Ariana's fingers brushed her pendant. It warmed instantly. Her phone buzzed with one message: "I'm on my way." "Dad." Her eyes filled with tears this time, not from pain but from relief. For the first time since the assault, she felt something loosen inside her. The fear, the humiliation, the crushing silence. It all shifted. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't powerless. Someone listened. Someone came. And the world, her mother's world, was finally paying attention. Ariana closed her eyes. The ambulance siren wailed softly outside. And she let herself breathe, slow, shaky, but free. For the first time since Seat 2B, she felt safe. The ambulance doors burst open with a rush of bright hospital lights spilling into the cool air. Ariana Collins blinked against the sudden brightness, her breath trembling as the paramedics guided the stretcher out and wheeled her inside. St. Luke's Hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and something warm like coffee left too long on a burner. It was oddly comforting in its own sterile way. A place built to treat pain, not ignore it. A place where someone would finally look at her and see more than a seat number, more than an inconvenience. "Doctor." Emily Carter kept pace beside her, calling out symptoms and vital signs to the waiting trauma team. 17-year-old female. Possible rib fractures on the left side, difficulty breathing, trauma from blunt force. Ariana's eyes stung at the phrase blunt force. Hearing it from a professional in a hospital made everything feel horrifyingly real. She wasn't imagining it. She wasn't overreacting. She wasn't dramatic. Something terrible had happened. And now it had a name. A nurse leaned over Ariana with gentle but efficient hands. "Sweetheart, we're going to help you breathe easier. Try to stay still." Ariana nodded faintly, her eyes drifting toward the ceiling, white tiles, soft lights, everything clean and precise. A world so different from the cramped chaos of the airplane. As they rolled her into an exam room, she heard murmurs outside, voices sharp, hurried, official. Federal agents, reporters, airport staff, her father. She could almost feel his presence nearby, heavy with fear and love and anger all at once. But right now all she could do was breathe. The trauma nurse placed a warm hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here, sweetheart." Safe. The word felt foreign and familiar at the same time. Ariana exhaled shakily. For the moment, yes, she was safe. The medical team worked quickly. Someone cut her hoodie carefully. Someone else pressed a cool sensor against her chest to check her breathing. Another voice instructed her to inhale and exhale slowly, while machines beeped steadily around her. When they lifted her shirt slightly to check the bruising, gasps filled the room. Dark marks, deep purple, blue, almost black in some areas, spread across her ribs, like the aftershock of an explosion beneath her skin. "Oh my," one nurse murmured. Another whispered she must have been hit with significant force. Ariana turned her face away. Hearing strangers react to the damage made her feel exposed, raw, small. She wanted to shrink into the sheets. "But Doctor," Carter leaned down and spoke softly. "Ariana, none of this is your fault. These injuries reflect what was done to you, not who you are." Ariana's eyes filled again. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "I know," Dr. Carter said gently. "And we're going to make sure the world knows it too." As the X-ray team prepared to take her for scans, a knock echoed at the door. A man's voice, shaken, breathless, carried through the hall. Ariana, baby, I'm here." Her heart leapt. "Dad." The door opened and Ariana Collins stepped inside, his suit jacket, wrinkled tie, loosened, eyes filled with something that broke Ariana all over again. Fear, anger, helplessness, love, so deep it hurt to see. He moved toward her in 2 strides, stopping only long enough to make sure he wasn't interfering with the medical equipment. Then he took her hand with both of his, squeezing firmly. "Oh, baby girl," his voice cracked. "What did they do to you?" Ariana's throat tightened. "Dad, I tried to tell her it hurt." She didn't listen. Darius blinked hard, jaw clenching. "She's never going to hurt you or anyone else again." Ariana looked up at him, studying his face. He'd always been a big man in her mind, towering, steady, unbreakable. But now, his shoulders shook slightly, his eyes glistened. He wasn't unbreakable, he was human. A father terrified for his child. "I'm sorry," Ariana whispered. "I didn't mean for everything to happen. I didn't mean to start all this." Darius shook his head immediately. No, sweetheart. You didn't start anything. Someone else did. Someone who thought she could get away with hurting you." He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "You hear me? You did nothing wrong." Ariana's breath trembled as her tears slipped silently down her temples. The nurse gently touched Darius's arm. "Sir, we need to take her for X-rays now." Darius nodded, wiping his eyes quickly. "I'll be right here when you get back. I'm not going anywhere." Ariana held onto his hand until the stretcher began moving. She didn't want to let go, but she did, because she had to. In the radiology room, Ariana lay still as cold plates pressed against her back. She stared at the ceiling, trying to keep her breath steady while technicians murmured instructions. Inhale, hold, exhale. Each breath was a knife, but she tried to follow every instruction exactly. The pendant rested beside her on the table, small, metallic, warm in a way nothing else in the room was. At one point, while adjusting a machine, a young technician glanced at her bruises and whispered under his breath, "Whoever did that must have really hit you." Ariana turned her face away. She didn't want pity. She wanted truth. She wanted to be seen for what really happened, not as a fragile girl, not as an overreacting passenger, but as someone who had endured something wrong, something unjust, something that mattered. When Ariana was rolled back into her room, Darius was waiting exactly where he promised, standing beside her bed, hands clasped tightly, anxiety etched across his features. Agent Porter stood beside him. Darius immediately stepped forward as they lifted her back onto the bed. "You okay? Does it hurt more now?" "A little," she whispered. He smoothed her hair gently. "You're brave. I'm proud of you." Agent Porter waited until Ariana was settled, then approached with calm, respectful steps. "Ariana," he said quietly, "I want you to know we're treating this as a federal offense. We'll speak to you later after your doctors clear it." She nodded faintly, and he added in a softer tone, "I spoke to Captain Lawson. He requested permission to visit you when you're feeling up to it." Ariana blinked. "The captain?" Why, Porter's expression warmed slightly. "He knew your mother." Ariana's breath caught. "My mom," Porter nodded. "She was an extraordinary woman. Her work is the reason the emergency aviation shield exists, and her daughter just activated it for the first time in history." Ariana's heart trembled. Her mother, her legacy, her voice woven into the system Ariana used today, without knowing it would change the country. Porter gave a respectful nod. "Rest for now. You've done enough for today." He turned and left the room. Darius sat beside her, taking her hand again. "You're safe now. Let them do their jobs." Ariana closed her eyes, breathing slowly through the pain. Safe. He kept saying she was safe, but safety wasn't a place, it wasn't a room, it wasn't even the flashing emergency lights outside. Safety was her father's voice. Safety was being believed. Safety was the warm pendant beside her. Safety was knowing her mother had built something powerful enough to protect her even years after she was gone. Ariana took a trembling breath. For the first time since everything began, she let herself drift, not into fear, not into panic, but into rest, heavy healing rest, the kind her mother would have wanted for her. Ariana woke slowly, drifting upward through layers of foggy exhaustion. The room around her was dimly lit, soft golden light from a lamp in the corner. A quiet monitor beeped rhythmically beside her. For a long moment she didn't know where she was. Then her ribs pulsed sharply, reminding her. The hospital, the landing, the agents, her father, everything. She inhaled carefully and winced at the tightness wrapping around her chest. A thick bandage hugged her ribs, secure, steady, painful, but protective. Someone had tucked a blanket around her shoulders. Her father. Ariana turned her head slightly. Ariana Collins sat in the chair next to her bed, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He looked exhausted, eyes red, shoulders heavy. He hadn't left. Ariana's heart tightened. "Dad," her voice came out soft and hoarse. Darius lifted his head immediately. Hey, baby girl, you're awake." His relief washed through the room like warm air after a storm. "How long was I asleep?" she asked. "Most of the evening," he said. "They gave you meds for the pain. You needed the rest." Ariana blinked, trying to adjust to everything at once. Her chest hurt. Her eyes felt swollen. Her mouth was dry. But underneath the physical discomfort was something stranger, an emotional heaviness, like layers of the day were finally settling onto her. Darius moved closer, gently brushing a stray curl away from her cheek. "You scared me half to death today." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Stop saying that." His voice broke a little. "You didn't do anything wrong." Ariana looked down at her hands, resting on the blanket. Her fingers were trembling slightly. She clasped them together to keep them still. "Dad, did the airports really shut down?" "All of them," Darius exhaled, slowly rubbing the back of his neck. "Not all, but enough. The system your mother helped design took action the moment you activated it. The country's still trying to understand what happened. Ariana's breath caught. Is it because of me? It's because of what was done to you, Darius corrected gently. You didn't break anything. The system responded to a violation. There's a difference. Ariana nodded faintly, though the weight didn't completely lift. Darius hesitated before continuing. And, Ariana, you're not just part of the story anymore. You're at the center of it. She swallowed. People know, not your name, he reassured her quickly. Not yet, but the story's spreading. Passenger-triggered safety protocol. Federal investigation underway. Airport shutdowns. People are talking, asking questions, demanding answers. Ariana's stomach tightened. She wasn't ready for that kind of attention. She wasn't ready for anything beyond the small circle of this hospital room. What if people blame me? She whispered. Darius shook his head. If they do, that's on them, not on you. But she didn't respond. Because deep down she wasn't afraid of being blamed. She was afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of people thinking she overreacted, afraid of reliving the moment over and over in the public eye, afraid of not being believed. Again. A soft knock interrupted the fragile silence. Agent Porter stepped inside, calm, composed as always, but his posture softened when he saw Ariana awake. Ariana, he said gently, I'm glad to see you're conscious. May I come in? She nodded. Porter took a seat beside Darius, folding his hands in his lap. I won't take much of your energy. I just need to share a few updates. Ariana tensed slightly, and Darius rested a hand on her blanket-covered leg to reassure her. Porter spoke slowly, clearly. First, Linda Hartman is in federal custody. She'll be charged with assault, abuse of authority, and endangerment. There's no ambiguity in her actions. Ariana's breath trembled. She hadn't expected resolution to come this quickly. Second, Porter continued, we've interviewed the entire flight crew. Skylar Wade gave a detailed account of the incident. The captain has provided additional information. And several passengers stepped forward after landing. Their statements support everything you told us. Ariana blinked hard. Her eyes felt warm again. People spoke up. People who saw. People who stayed silent during the flight. Finally spoke now. That mattered. Third, Porter said, leaning forward slightly, your scan results show 2 fractured ribs, 1 severe bruise, no internal bleeding. You're going to recover. Relief flooded Ariana in a wave so strong she could barely breathe through it. And finally, Porter added, tone more gentle. The emergency aviation shield fully registered your activation. You're the first passenger in U.S. history to validate its use. That carries implications. Legal, procedural, emotional. Ariana swallowed. But you should know, he said firmly. Your mother's system worked exactly as intended. Her throat tightened. Porter continued, Elise Lawson built that protocol because she believed people like you, passengers without power, people marginalized or dismissed, deserved immediate protection. She believed the skies should be fair, safe, accountable. Ariana's vision blurred, tears falling silently. Porter stood. I'll return tomorrow with more details. For now, rest. He nodded to Darius and stepped out quietly. Silence filled the room again, heavy but steady. Ariana wiped her cheeks with shaky fingers. Dad! Did Mom really build all of that? Darius's face softened. Your mom was brilliant, stubborn, kind, and she hated injustice. She spent years designing a system to protect people, not airlines, not corporations, people. Ariana clutched the pendant around her neck. What was she like? She whispered. Darius leaned back, his eyes going distant with memory. Like sunlight and storm at the same time. She'd fight the world if it meant making things better for even one person. And she loved you more than anything. Ariana closed her eyes. She wished she could remember more. She wished she could hear her mother's voice again beyond the echoes in her memories. After a moment, Darius spoke again, softer. You know she'd be proud of you. Not for the system activation or any headline, but because you told the truth, because you didn't let someone diminish your worth. Ariana breathed slowly, carefully. I didn't feel brave, she admitted. I felt scared the whole time. Being scared doesn't cancel bravery, Darius whispered. It proves it. Another knock echoed at the door, gentler, hesitant. A man's voice followed. May I come in? Darius frowned. Who? But Ariana recognized the tone. Captain Reed Lawson stepped inside, hat in his hands, eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. His shoulders were tense, his expression humble. Mr. Collins, Ariana. He nodded respectfully. If now isn't a good time, I can come back later. Ariana shook her head slightly. It's okay. Reed moved closer, pulling up a chair beside the bed. His voice came out low, weighted with sincerity. I came to apologize, he said, for what happened under my watch, for what you endured, for the pain you're in right now. Ariana stared at him quietly. Reed continued, Your mother taught me in flight school. She believed in compassion before protocol, responsibility before authority. I failed to uphold that today. Darius studied him carefully. Did you know who she was when she boarded? Reed's jaw tightened. No, not until the system activated. If I had known, maybe I would've. Ariana shook her head. It shouldn't take knowing. Reed stopped. Ariana continued softly. People shouldn't need to be important for others to treat them fairly. Reed lowered his gaze. You're right, and I'm sorry. For the first time, Ariana saw vulnerability in the captain's eyes. Not weakness, humanity. Reed stood. If you ever need anything from me, anything, my door is open. He left the room quietly. Ariana watched him go, then sank back against her pillows. Her chest hurt, her ribs ached. Her heart felt heavy and full at the same time. Darius squeezed her hand. You're doing great. Ariana closed her eyes. The world outside was loud. Airports were disrupted. Investigations were unfolding. Her name was rising on invisible threads that connected past and present. But here in this quiet hospital room, wrapped in blankets and her father's protection, Ariana felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of clarity, a sense of strength, a sense of connection to the mother she'd lost. She touched her pendant again. It warmed instantly. Maybe she wasn't alone after all. Not in the skies, not in the world, not in this fight, not ever. Morning light filtered through the hospital room blinds, casting bands of gold across Ariana's blanket. She stirred at the warmth touching her cheek and opened her eyes slowly. Everything around her carried that soft glow of early daylight, the kind that made the world feel gentler, quieter, suspended. Her ribs, however, disagreed. Pain pulsed through her side the moment she tried to shift. A low groan escaped her lips. Darius Collins, who had been dozing with his head tilted back against the wall, woke instantly. Ariana, you okay? He asked, leaning toward her. She nodded, though the motion hurt. Just sore. Darius exhaled. Yeah. You will be for a while. The doctor said the fractures will take weeks to heal. Ariana let her head sink back into the pillow. She didn't mind the pain as much now. It was real, yes, sharp, constant. But it was truth made visible. It was proof that what she suffered actually happened. Proof that she didn't imagine anything, that her voice mattered. Still, it hurt. A soft knock came at the door. A nurse poked her head in with a warm smile. Good morning, sweetheart. Pain levels from 1 to 10. Ariana thought for a moment. 7, maybe. Darius frowned. 7. Why didn't you wake me? The nurse gave him a gentle look. Healing hurts, Mr. Collins. But she's on schedule. I'll get her next dose. As the nurse left, Ariana reached for her pendant. The little piece of metal felt cool from the night, but it warmed instantly under her fingers like it always did. Darius noticed. You still keep that thing close, huh? It makes me feel like Mom is here, she whispered. Darius's eyes softened. She is. There was another knock. This one firm, confident. Agent Porter stepped in holding a tablet and a folder. His posture was steady, but his expression carried something new gravity. "Morning, Ariana." "Morning, Mr. Collins," he greeted. Agent Porter Darius nodded. "Come in." Porter took a seat at the foot of the bed, folding his hands. "I'm here because today is going to be a lot," he began. "Public pressure has intensified. More airports are initiating partial shutdown audits. And the story of the anonymous teenage passenger has hit national news." Ariana's stomach tightened. "Anonymous." "For now, yes," Porter said. "We are keeping your identity confidential, but the scale of this incident is growing." Darius frowned. "What does that mean for my daughter?" Porter hesitated a brief pause, but enough to make Ariana's pulse quicken. "It means," he said slowly, "that there will be hearings, statements, press inquiries, possible Senate attention." Ariana's breath caught. "Senate," he nodded. "The emergency aviation shield has never been activated in a real-world scenario. This is the first. And because the activation is tied to discrimination, assault, and negligence, the implications reach far beyond a single flight." Ariana looked down, her fingers tightening around her blanket. Porter continued, "But none of this is your fault. You told the truth. You survived something no one should endure, especially not a child. And you spoke up." She didn't feel brave. She felt tired. Tired in a place deeper than her bones. "Can I not be part of it?" she whispered. "Can I just heal?" Quietly. Porter's voice softened. "We'll protect you as much as possible, but the world is already moving. And right now you are the voice everyone is trying to hear." A tear rolled down Ariana's cheek. "I don't want the world to look at me." Darius reached over, holding her hand. "Baby girl, people aren't looking to judge you. They're looking to learn, to understand, to fix what's broken." Ariana didn't answer. She didn't know what she felt. Fear, sadness, exhaustion, or some tangled mix of all three. After a moment, Porter stood. "There's one more thing." He tapped the folder. "This contains your mother's original notes. Her early drafts for the Aviation Shield project. Her vision, her reasoning, her warnings." Ariana blinked. "You have Mom's notes," Porter nodded. "I spoke with Captain Lawson last night. He kept copies of her drafts from flight school, things she shared with him before she became an engineer. He preserved them, and he wanted you to have them." Ariana felt something in her chest loosen, something old, raw, aching. Porter placed the folder gently on her lap. "Read them when you're ready." He stepped toward the door but paused. "And Ariana, if you choose to speak publicly when the time comes, the country will listen. Not because of what happened to you, but because of who you are." Ariana looked up. "Who am I?" Porter smiled faintly. "Your mother's daughter." He left the room quietly. Ariana waited until the door clicked shut before opening the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were handwritten pages, her mother's handwriting neat and precise, diagrams, notes, phrases circled and underlined. But one line at the top of the first page pulled Ariana in. "The sky belongs to everyone. No one should fear flying. E.L." Ariana traced the letters with her fingertip. The next line read, "A safety system is useless if it protects corporations more than passengers." Further down, people who are dismissed, profiled, ignored. They need something that listens when no one else will. Ariana swallowed hard. Her mother had known something like this could happen. She had built a safety net for people who weren't believed. A system she hoped Ariana would never need. And yet, today it had saved her. Darius watched her quietly. "She wrote that before you were born." Ariana looked at him. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me she did all this?" "Because," he said gently, "I didn't want you to grow up feeling like you had to carry her legacy. I wanted you to just be Ariana, just my kid." Ariana wiped her eyes. "But now I'm carrying it anyway." Darius leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Not because you have to, because you're strong enough to." The door opened again, this time revealing Skylar Wade. Her eyes were red, her hair was pulled back loosely. She still wore her flight attendant uniform, though it looked wrinkled, tired, like she had slept sitting upright somewhere. She stepped in, slowly hesitating. "Hi, can I come in?" Ariana nodded. Skylar approached the bed, but she didn't sit. She stood there, hands twisting nervously. I just wanted to see you," she whispered, "and to say that I'm so sorry." Ariana blinked. "You didn't hurt me." "I know," Skylar said, voice trembling, "but I watched it happen. I saw her kick you, I saw you fall, and I froze." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I should have done something. I should have stepped in. I should have stopped her." Ariana stared at her for a long moment, then she shook her head gently. "It's hard to move when you're scared," she said quietly. "I know that feeling." Skylar covered her mouth to keep from sobbing. "You deserved better." Ariana nodded. "Yeah. But thank you for helping me after." Skylar exhaled shakily, wiping her cheeks. "I'm going to testify. I'm going to say everything I saw." Ariana managed a small smile. "Okay." Skylar hesitated, then added, "You're brave, Ariana. You're stronger than you think." She left before her tears broke completely. Later, when the room was quiet again, Ariana looked at her father. "Dad," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart. When everything calms down, and the hearings happen, and people ask what happened." She paused, swallowing. "Will you be with me?" Darius squeezed her hand. "Every step." Ariana nodded slowly. She wasn't ready for the world. She wasn't ready for the noise. She wasn't ready for the spotlight. But she wasn't alone, and that made all the difference. She touched her pendant again, warm, steady, comforting. Her mother's legacy wasn't just in the system she built. It was in Ariana, too, and she was just beginning to feel it. 2 days later, Ariana Collins sat upright in her hospital bed while a cold winter sun spilled through the window. The sky outside was pale blue, the kind that made every building and treetop look sharper, cleaner, more defined. She liked mornings like this, quiet, steady, honest. Her ribs still hurt, especially when she breathed too deeply, but the bandaging helped, and the pain medication softened the sharp edges. Enough at least to let her think clearly again. Darius stood near the foot of her bed, tying his tie in a small mirror propped on the windowsill. He had been wearing suits every day now. Meetings, calls, interviews, lawyers, federal investigators. People asking questions, demanding details, wanting to understand what happened on that plane. But no matter how many voices wanted answers, Darius always made time for Ariana. She could see it in the way he checked on her first thing every morning, in the way he looked up from the mirror and gave her a warm, steady smile. "You're looking stronger today," he said. Ariana lifted a shoulder carefully. "A little, that's all we need," he said softly. "A little every day." She glanced at the notebook on her lap, the one filled with her mother's writing. She'd read the first pages the night before. They were full of diagrams, emotional notes, visions of a safer aviation industry. Pages filled with her mother's steady, thoughtful handwriting. This morning she flipped to a section she hadn't seen yet. At the top of the page, written more hastily than the others, was a line her mother had underlined twice. "If my daughter ever needs this system, then something in the world is still broken." Ariana stared at the words for a long time. She didn't know if she felt comforted or devastated by them. Probably both. A knock sounded at the door. When it opened, Agent Porter stepped inside, crisp suit, calm eyes. Behind him was someone new, a woman with silver hair, sharp posture, and a tailored navy coat. Something about her presence made the room feel smaller, like the air had weight again. Ariana, Porter said gently, "This is Director Helena Moore from the U.S. Civil Aviation Oversight Division." Ariana sat up straighter. "Hello." Director Moore approached slowly, her voice warm but firm. "Miss Collins, I've read every report on your case, every statement, every transcript. I've also reviewed your mother's original documents. You've endured something no passenger should ever endure, and the system she designed responded exactly as she hoped." Ariana felt her breath tremble. It didn't feel like courage. It felt like desperation. Moore shook her head. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a small voice in a moment of harm that says, "This isn't right." And you said it. Ariana looked down at her lap. Moore continued, "We are convening a hearing in the next week. Airline CEOs, FAA officials, federal regulators, all will be questioned. We want to change things at a national level. But for that, we need you. Only if you're willing." Darius stepped closer. "She's still recovering." "I know," Moore said. "We're not asking her to relive trauma. We're asking her to share her truth, her experience. Her voice will shape how the country understands what happened." Ariana swallowed. Her fingers tightened around her mother's pendant. "What if I say the wrong thing?" she whispered. Moore's expression softened. "The truth doesn't break under pressure, Ariana. It holds." Silence settled over the room. Then Ariana asked quietly, "What if I'm scared?" Moore smiled gently. "Then speak scared. It's still courage." Later that afternoon, after Moore and Porter left, Skylar Wade came to visit again. She looked better today, clean, uniform hair pulled back neatly, though her eyes still held the weight of everything that had happened. "I hope it's okay that I came," she said. "It is," Ariana replied softly. Skylar sat down. "I wanted to tell you, I quit." Ariana blinked. "Your job?" Skylar nodded. "Yeah. When I saw everything happening, when I realized how much pain you were in, something broke in me. I couldn't keep working under people who ignored what they saw." Ariana frowned, concerned. "But your job." "It's okay," Skylar said gently. "Sometimes we outgrow the places that gave us comfort." Ariana stared at her. "Weren't you scared?" Skylar let out a soft laugh. "Terrified. But you made me brave." Ariana blinked. "Me, yes," Skylar said simply. "You survived something awful. You stood up by just saying the truth. You made the whole country pause and look at itself. That's the kind of strength people don't forget." Ariana didn't know what to say. She didn't feel strong, but maybe strength wasn't something you felt. Maybe it was something others saw in you when you didn't see it yourself. Skylar reached over and squeezed her hand. "If you speak at the hearing, I'll be there, behind you." Ariana nodded. "Thank you." Skylar smiled and stood to leave. "Rest okay, you're carrying enough." Evening came slowly. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the hospital room. Ariana opened her mother's notebook again, page after page of ideas, warnings, hopes. One note stopped her. "Courage isn't loud. It's persistent." Ariana traced the word persistent with her thumb. She thought about Linda Hartman, about her anger, her fear, her prejudice, about how some people in the world grew hard in places they should stay soft. She also thought about Skylar and Captain Lawson and the passengers who stepped forward after landing. People weren't just one thing. They were a mix of mistakes and courage and choices and change. Her ribs ached again. She pressed her palm gently over them. Every bruise was a reminder of pain, of survival, of truth. She didn't want her story to be just about hurt. She wanted it to be about healing too. Darius sat next to her again. "You thinking a lot?" Ariana nodded. "About the hearing, about everything." He touched her arm. "Whatever you choose, I'll stand with you." She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, careful of her ribs. "Dad, what if I speak and no one listens?" He shook his head. "People will listen. Some because they care, some because they feel guilty, some because they want to understand. But however they listen, your voice will reach them." Ariana looked at her pendant. "Do you think Mom would want me to speak?" Darius smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Your mom wanted a fairer world. She spent her whole career building things to protect people. She didn't want you to be hurt, Ariana, but she would have been proud that you turned pain into purpose." Ariana's eyes welled again. Darius added softly, "And she'd be even prouder if you chose healing after." A long silence settled, a warm, gentle one. Ariana breathed slowly, deeply. Not without pain, but steadily. Then she whispered, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll speak." Darius closed his eyes, absorbing the moment. "You're brave, baby girl." Ariana shook her head. "No, I'm just done being small." Later that night the hospital grew quiet. Ariana sat alone watching the city lights twinkle below the window. Cars moved like tiny sparks. Buildings cast long reflections across dark streets. Life continued, unaware of her room, her pain, her decision. But she felt her place in it now. Not small, not invisible, not voiceless. Her ribs still hurt, her heart still trembled. But something inside her had shifted. Strength. Not the loud kind. Not the bold kind. The persistent kind. The kind her mother wrote about. Ariana lifted the pendant and whispered, "Thank you, Mom." A warmth filled her chest, not physical, not from the painkillers, but from the quiet understanding that courage wasn't something she found. It was something she inherited. And tomorrow she would use it. Not to punish, not to shame, not to break, but to heal. For herself, for others, for the sky her mother believed in. She closed her eyes. For the first time since the flight, the dark felt gentle, safe. Ariana Collins' story reminds us that sometimes courage is not a loud shout, but a grip on a chair, a painful breath, a word that trembles but comes from the heart. The more vulnerable a person is, the more likely their voice is to be ignored, but they also know best the pain of silence. In life, injustice is not always loud. It happens in everyday moments, a contemptuous look, an insulting word, or an action small enough to hurt a person. And sometimes we choose to be silent to make everything smooth. But being silent for too long will make the soul become small. What Ariana teaches us is not to fight back, but to dare to speak the truth, even if the voice is shaky. She is proof that one small action, one button, one honest testimony can open the door to change for millions of others. If you've ever experienced pain, been overlooked, or felt like the world wasn't on your side, remember, you're not invisible, and your truth deserves to be heard. Thank you for being with us until the end of this story, a journey of pain, courage, and hope. If the story touches you, inspires you, or helps you reflect on yourself, please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you more meaningful stories. Your support is what keeps us going to tell the stories the world needs to hear. See you on the next journey.